Esther Dyson, welcome back a year later or so. Same background. COVID came, sort of went, it's back, it's with us. And I remember your Black Plague reference to the how we are just too social as a human species. But as you reflect year by year, you please just introduce yourself, and then I'll cue you for reflection, prediction, goals, and asks.
Okay. So my day job, as it has been for 6 or 7 years and will be for another 3, is Wellville, which is a 10-year nonprofit project focused on helping 5 small communities build themselves sustainable long-term institutions that foster equity and health. And that's quite long and very specific. It's not a perpetual foundation. We don't hand out money. We help people build their own institutions, and we foster collaboration. And the result, we hope, is going to be much healthier childhoods, which leads to much healthier people. And aside from that, I'm a tech investor, spent a lot of time in Russia, which is how I know you. And all these things in the end are part of what informs my work, making at least some small parts of the world a healthier place. And then in 3 years, we want to publicize what we're doing and try and get other people not to fund us, but to follow us and copy us and spread it.
It deserves its own deep dive just to talk about Wellville, as well as venture, as well as Russia. But so on to how do you, year later, what are your key reflections?
Well, you asked what was a big decision. I mean, in a way, I make little investment decisions. I made, talk to this person, but the big decision I made was, as much as possible, to keep traveling and to show up face to face, because so much of the work I do, and I think many people without realizing it, it's basically working with and through others. And the motivation you get, the buy-in, the subtleness really does depend on, like it or not being with 2 screens between you. We're still physical, chemical, emotional human beings. And the very fact that you bothered to show up, yes, and you got COVID tested and you're wearing a mask, it's not like you're invading, but you're making the effort to be present. Makes the other person focus too. Right? Salespeople know this.
Yeah.
And here we have our environment.
Okay.
Salespeople know that. And anyway, it kept me engaged, going to see the people in Wellville, going to the few board meetings I could go to that we held physically together, often outdoors. But context really matters when you're talking about motivating people, as opposed to, assessing OKRs or looking at a spreadsheet.
Sure. Well, then, taking that forward, how do you see this year already, January 3rd?
With luck, it's going to be easier on the travel front. Not right now, but watching COVID is fascinating. It's a huge science lesson for everybody who cares to watch. And my hope is that there's a huge bump that then subsides equally rapidly. And then I am so ready to go see people in person and so forth. So I'm looking forward to it and ready to roll.
Before I go on to your goals and asks, since you've got such thought leadership, what do you, maybe a couple predictions for this year?
So I find it hard to predict per year, because things that are unexpected often happen like that. Then there are the things you can predict, but you don't know when. And long run, I would put my money, for a region, I'd put it in Africa. There's a huge population. I mean, they have lots of governance problems that need to be resolved, but there's more and more interest in doing that. At one point you had colonialists, then you had the neo-colonialists, the Chinese investing, but bringing in their own people. And now there's really an upswelling of young people who are connected to and to some extent freed by the rest of the world. You could have said that around Eastern Europe too, and but I'm really hopeful that that will happen. Second, I'm hoping that COVID has caused the US and the whole world to pay much more attention to chronic disease and the importance of resilience and health as opposed to the availability of healthcare. If you need healthcare, often it's a sign the system has already failed. And I think COVID has made that clear. We need to do a better job of raising kids, giving them resilience, giving them education, creating social conditions that, I care about the environment, but the real asset on Earth is human beings, and we need to invest more in those.
So as you plan for 2022 and beyond, because I know I want to get on to Mars, but how do your philanthropic goals? You live it with Wellville. But what are your goals near term, at least for Wellville?
Well, my goals for Wellville and for philanthropy is start thinking longer term and start thinking more systemically. Philanthropy makes you feel good, but you need to make your philanthropy effective. It's kind of like day trading versus investing. Philanthropy needs to look at the impact they're creating. It needs to focus more on getting the grantees to collaborate and build institutions rather than just take the money and spend it every year according to whatever the grant proposal was, and compete with other grantees. We're working with United Way and Muskegon looking at how can they get their grantees to collaborate? How can they focus on one or two big goals and build something long-term rather than do remedial work day by day, fix the conditions that created the problem of homelessness or mental illness or diabetes. And some of that requires a huge amount of collective action, including voting and pricing and externalities, both the externalities of sugar and tobacco on the one hand, or the positive externalities, pay childcare workers more and pay for childcare.
You remind me, actually, I gave the question wrong, particularly since your whole point is to go long term. Do you know Peter Borish, one of the Robin Hood co-founders, by chance?
I don't.
He spoke at our Impact Philanthropy event, and he said, why we need to be more risk-taking as well. They've created labs, which sort of goes, venture has a longer-term impact, but it takes some patience. And a lot of philanthropic dollars go to the sure things, or the safer things, so to speak. But I'll have to connect to it.
That would be great. Yeah.
And so then how can we help you, Esther?
So I'm going to list the 5 communities: Clatsop County, Oregon, Lake County, California, Muskegon County, Michigan, North Hartford, Connecticut, and Spartanburg, South Carolina. Each of them could benefit from everything from investments in opportunity zones, or, they have lots of things they're working on. We don't give them money, we help them become worth giving money to. Mm-hmm. And that means they tell us the truth, and it creates a much better dynamic. So if any of those places sounds interesting, or if you're someone who wants to deal with these kinds of issues in your own community, happy to talk with you and share a little of what we're doing and what we've learned, both what to do and what not to do.
Is there some place we could go to read up on all communities?
Thank you. Amazed you would ask. www.wellville.net. And we're in the middle of a website redo, so give it a week or two, but don't forget, you can look now. Just come back later too. Thank you.
Fair enough. And what would be your one word for this year?
Purpose. Short-term desire is addiction. Long-term desire is purpose.
Short term is what again?
Short-term desire is addiction. I want it now. I need it now.
Perfect. Yes, yes.
I'm not looking for pleasure. I'm looking for relief. Just please give it to me. And it takes away your future. It takes away your sense of agency. Long-term desire is purpose. And it gives you that sense of community, long-term thinking, building that sense of agency that you need to make a difference.